Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the new DC Multiverse Batman, which is actually the one designed by Todd McFarlane himself. And there's actually a gray and black version of this. I don't remember what the situation is. Was that one Target exclusive? I think maybe it was, or there was some way to get a gray and black rather than blue and gray. This is the one that you can just order regularly. Maybe you can order both. I don't know. Look it up. But I ordered this at Big Bad Toy Store. So if you want blue and gray, just go order one. And it's another Batman release from Todd McFarlane. It's mostly got a lot of the same qualities and problems as the other releases, but being a unique design, a new design, there's some stuff to talk about. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 19 centimeters at the top of his head, not counting his ear tips, which makes him pretty close to 7.5 inches. So he does have a little bit of size on him, but he's pretty much in line with the rest of the DC Multiverse figures from Todd. And at first glance, it looks pretty darn good. They did a good job with a lot of things. I'll note that one of the most important factors on this guy that's making him more appealing, he has perfectly sized leg proportions. His thighs are thicker and longer than his calves, and it makes such a difference in a powerful looking character, which is what superheroes are. They did a really good job with that. I like that a whole bunch. I think part of the reason they did that is that he has a very thick torso also, and they really needed to in order for that to not look weird. So they did a pretty good job with that. I will say on the downside though, his arms are particularly shrimpy. They don't look like they came from the same figure. He's got very skinny arms considering how wide and thick his torso and legs are. Nobody skips arm day, especially Batman. So that's just a little bit strange. But otherwise, they did a pretty good job with the proportions, especially considering if this is the source material. I'm sure there's more than just this, since this is the card that comes with it. But I'm sure Todd has more drawings of it. But it looks like that as far as proportions go, so that's a good thing. You'll note on that drawing that he does kind of have a big forehead, and they definitely did not miss that on the figure. I do think the drawing looks way better than the figure in terms of the head proportioning. From the side, it's not as bad, but the way they did it, he has a huge dome, very helmeted head. His cowl is very thick, and he does have a little bit of a downward look to his eyes, which makes him look kind of frumpy, but otherwise it's way better looking than I thought it was gonna be in person, so I'm very pleased with that. As far as the finish goes, his bat is fairly glossy. It's like a semi-gloss. That's pretty cool. We do have slight metallics going on with the gold parts and the spikes. That's pretty cool. Most of the gray is pretty glossy though, and that definitely is a put off. Don't care for that. It looks like cheap plastic because of that. That's a bummer. On the other hand, the darker blue, or the dark blue, the only blue that's on there, is a nice matte finish, and it looks really nice. I think this guy would benefit greatly from the gray parts not being shiny. Definitely. And then the yellow on the belt, the bat logo, pretty... It's not terrible. The line works clean, but it's got a lot of blue poking through, so that's kind of a bummer. A couple of things aren't painted on the belt, or down here, that's where they are. I knew I saw them somewhere. The grenades aren't painted, the canisters up here aren't painted. A couple things aren't, so that does take away from the figure. If you're going to give him a belt with gadgets, you should probably paint that properly. And then the other thing is the pouches aren't even painted completely. Like, he's got brown pouches everywhere in the artwork, and then half of his pouches on him are blue. Like, they painted some of them clearly, and then some of them they just decided not to. So definitely not the most attractive looking figure ever, but they did do a lot of things right, so yeah, it's fine. If you really like the design, I think you're going to be into it. If you don't like the design, then you probably wouldn't be buying it anyway, so I think a lot of it's excusable. So I'll give this guy a 7 out of 10 for the aesthetic. The glossy plastic is really the biggest deterrent to me, for me to say it looks really good. Now, as far as the accessories go, we have his two little... I can't remember the name of this particular type of knife, but 2 knives / small swords / large knives, and they look pretty good. They have a little silver on the blade, and we have some gold on the handle, so that's pretty nice. And then we get a gold batarang, which is pretty well done. That's it for actual accessories. We do get the black display stand if you want that, and we get the collector card, not a trading card, which is what we already showed you. So 5 out of 10. No fist hands for Batman again. Batman doesn't punch people anymore. No toys for Batman allow punching, only stabbing and slashing with blades. So it is what it is. Need fist hands, guys. If it's a superhero who punches people, it needs to come with fist hands. Seems reasonable enough. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. The head can lean side to side very nicely. Doesn't lean up all that well, but it does, and it does go down a little bit, and pretty far as far as you can go, so that's fine. That's really good. It's at least a single. It feels like a single ball peg. It could be a double, but it moves exactly how you would want a head to move, which is really well. Love that. That's how you need to do it all the time. Very good. For the shoulders, we can get them up better than horizontal, so that's very nice. There is a butterfly joint, which does allow some adjustment posing, but it's very little. So is it worth it? It doesn't hurt anything, so fine, I guess. It depends how much budget they're spending on that. It's extra tooling every time, so I don't know. That's a strange decision they keep doing, but it is there and it doesn't hurt anything. So if you're one of those people who's really into photography or whatever and you need to just adjust the arm just a little bit, that'll help. You know, it does change the look, so that's okay. As far as rotation goes, it does go. The cape gets in the way, of course, so that's to be expected. Bicep swivel is fine. Double jointed elbow is pretty dang ugly. There's a lot of cavity going on right there, and it's really stiff on the forearm, and it's kind of, these are really hard spikes. They're not soft plastic at all. These are not intended for kids at all, which is not a surprise, but still. The elbow is very stiff, and I can't get it to go. Yeah, I can't get either arm to bend at the lower elbow, so be aware of that. And he does have very tiny wrists. His ball hinge wrists are very small. That's probably more an aesthetic thing than anything, because you do get really great range out of them, like way too much range. You can just break him. So bigger balls is better, almost always. True for here as well. Okay, as for the torso, let's see what we have going on here. It's a single ball peg, it feels like. I don't have any shift going on, so it feels like a single ball peg. It does lean back a little bit. It leans forward almost zero. Side to side, almost zero. It does rotate. That is unattractive. All right, let's see how the lower torso works. It's another ball. It has more lean going back, a little bit more lean going side to side, and almost no lean going forward. And it does rotate. I will note, if you look in here, he's got a very thick belt, which is connected to his diaper, but his diaper comes up over the belt. So we have an extra seam here, which doesn't need to be there. That should just not exist. It should just be the belt, so there's no extra seam going through the sculpt, and it would afford more range. And the reason they did that, I think, is because his torso is very short, and it doesn't make any sense that it is that short. They could have easily accounted for that and gotten rid of this gap, and you would have had better range, especially since it doesn't go forward anyway. You would have had better range and a better sculpt for no reason. But as it is, even if you wanted to trim that to make it look better, you'd be more likely to see that gap that's in there. So very, very odd choices, again, from the McFarlane company. It's like they want to add articulation, but they really don't. Like, somebody in there is saying you have to add articulation, and then another person is saying, no, don't add the articulation. It's very strange. It's almost like there's two different managers working for the same department, and they're giving their people different orders. I don't know. Hips going out to the side better than 45, that's pretty good. Going forward, you're going to bind on the diaper right away. They go up a little bit, but really not well, and you can see, if you're not careful, you're going to tear or at least crease that crotch. You never want to crease the crotch. Going back, the legs go back pretty far. His very well sculpted glutes stretch a decent amount, so that's good. He's got a very deep butt crack for somebody wearing clothes. Apparently Batman's suit is just very, very thin material in the ass crack region. You do get a thigh swivel in here, which seems to be something that they've purposely done. That's pretty cool. Double jointed knees are chunky as hell, but they bend, so that's pretty good. And for the ankles, it's a really tiny ball hinge, which gives you just a little bit range going back. And because of the sculpt, almost literally no range. Maybe actually literally no range going forward. So that really sucks. You get a decent ankle rocker out of it though. That's pretty cool. And then the toe hinge is super loose and pretty far back and kind of worthless. So articulation on this guy is not very good. Torso sucks, hips are okay, knees are okay, ankles suck. Head is good. 6 out of 10. Gonna be hard to pose this guy. Looking very cool, I think. Torso is terrible. Really, really bad torso. 6 is probably too harsh. I'll go 7. The knees are fine. Ankles have some utility. Not good though. Considering these figures are all new sculpts, there should be very little compromise in the articulation department. They can pretty much make them however they want as they're making them. And they're not. Or they are, but it doesn't help for posing, so that's a bummer. So final verdict on this guy. It does look better than I thought it was going to. They did a pretty good job in a lot of ways, but in most of the same ways as they usually do, they fell pretty short, fell pretty flat. And I do want to say one last thing before I do a final rating. He has these little half sheaths back here, which I do like that they're not super bulky or anything. But when you put the knives in, or the blades, it's very cumbersome. They don't really fit in well, and they stick into his head. You can't do it that way. That's the thing, is like, the way they sculpted, you're inclined to put it with the handle facing out, but he'd never be able to grab them that well. And you'd be grabbing them backwards anyway, so you want to put them like this, so that when he draws it, you know, you're grabbing it with the knuckles. So you have these just like up against his head. It looks goofy, and they don't fit well, so that's another thing. It's just, a lot of the things on these figures just seem very poorly implemented. So final verdict on this guy, 6 out of 10. No, I'll give it a 7. It's a very generous 7. There's enough going on here that it looks pretty cool, and you can probably get enough of a pose, like just a little bit, to make it look cool on a shelf. But again, McFarlane Toys, they seem to be so split on what they want to do. Do they want to have the cool sculpts? Do they want to have the articulation? They keep giving us like half and half of each. Like half the sculpts are really cool, and then half the articulation works really well, but the rest is just a mess. So I don't quite get what they're doing. I don't know, it's very weird. Let me know how you guys feel about it in the comment section below. And also, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.